Zane. Thank you so much for coming on Chaplin Talks. How are you doing?
I'm well, Spencer. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I can tell you, I've been looking back over your career, and I was very, very surprised to see that your very first acting role was in Back to the Future, um, which is pretty intense for a first role. I mean, the
Yeah,
pressure must have been
yeah.
pretty big for you.
We used to say it was baptism by fire. It was the kind of all right. That's a way to jump into the deep end. It was no, what a great pleasure that was. I kind of you know debunked the I think the standard run when one decides to go to Hollywood when they're 18 to ostensibly take a year off from what would be film school or college or any really higher learning at that point, just for a year, a sabbatical,
Yeah.
and in 2 weeks start work, get a job like that, which kept him busy for maybe 6 months or so, perhaps a little over half a year, as we shot it twice, with a recast
Yeah, yeah,
of
exactly.
Eric Stoltz for Michael J. So not only was it your first movie, but you got a do over. And once you learn some of the tricks, you're like, all right, I think I got this now. Do you mind doing it just one more time, Stephen and Bob, just so we can, I think I'll get it right this time. My one line, I think, which was shit, or I think I scream when we get dumped manure, or get him. Yeah.
How how
Um,
how did you get that role then?
that was an audition. That was simply, we went in to read for Biff. They had already cast Tom Wilson, the wonderfully talented Thomas Wilson. And so glad they did. He was just one of the funniest, most charming people to this day. And um, obviously, we didn't have much dialogue for his kind of minions, his support, his gang.
Yeah.
So we all read Biff dialogue, and they chose, and they just put a group together that seemed to make sense between 3D skinhead, and I think my character's name was Match.
Okay. That's
So
amazing.
it was simply an audition, and I wore I remember wearing a Jetsons very pop cultural kind of retro T-shirt, knowingly that it played to the ethos of what I felt the film was trying to capture, this kind of historic, modern, kind of quirky pop thing. And they referenced it when we got on set. Bob Gale was like, I remember that T-shirt.
Oh, really?
So nothing is arbitrary in your 15 minutes of whatever you need in the room. Dress for success, whatever that means, or at least know that they're looking at everything, and everything communicates somehow. It was an early lesson, a welcomed one I applied for the rest of my career, which was to really realizing the strange impact of small things
Yeah.
in a room.
No, absolutely. No, I love that film. And because you grew up in Chicago, am I correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So at what age did you realize that acting was your thing, that you wanted to become an actor?
Um, well, my family were, I guess, professional actors in Chicago. They did theater there. My parents were on stage before they started a business in the medical and educational field in the
Wow.
late '70s. But while they were on stage, I remember being exposed to some of the best from the American stage. And then we'd even go to England in September's with the Goodman Theater out of Chicago for
Oh, wow.
quite a few years to see a collection of some of the best of that. So it was really in my blood at a young age, and call it genetics and exposure, nature and nurture. And I thought, well, this is a really cool and logical pursuit for a young man, that, like every young man who wants independence and to, you know, make some money and get his own pad and, start to be,
Yeah.
it was the quickest route towards all of those things, while being um, seemingly quite fun, and a great excuse to not go to school. So I, in the, which I, only pined for as an adult much later in
Yeah,
life.
of course.
Now I'm kind of kicking my way through the back door of academia. So
Okay, and so I assume when you tell your parents that you want to go into acting, they were quite supportive then.
they were incredibly. My mom was a bit hesitant to send her boy to Hollywood at 18. Dad was like, "Do it, go for it."
Okay.
We came with me. We looked for places to stay, and um, I had an agent, which was good from Chicago. It wasn't like I was free in a free fall. I had a really good kind of support network, which is critical, and quickly had very good friends. My sister
Okay.
followed soon after, so that was nice.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, but yeah, unlike it was fairly quick to land a gig that supported me. That was very fortunate and rare, and I never took it for granted.
Yeah, it's true because you hear all these stories of people going to audition after audition after audition. They say for every 500 auditions, maybe you get one. So
Don't get me wrong. You still do that for you still do it. I mean, that was just the first one.
yeah,
Trust me. The minute anyone is hired in Hollywood, they're panicked about the next one.
okay,
It's an insane, volatile business model as far as a career.
hmm
We're tradesmen. We are roofers in a housing industry. We do this. And if I hope it's a good market. The life of the actor.
yeah,
Interesting one.
no, definitely. And I mean, I'm sure you've heard it 500 million times, but your performance was I mean, so incredible into Titanic. How was it working with a director like James Cameron? I mean, did you enjoy making the film?
Entirely. That was a pleasure on so many levels. He's not necessarily known for his humor and his comedy, but it's where we connected most.
Oh, how interesting.
And um, he's a great wit, and we both love puns. And um, I just had such a great. We had such a funny time playing and diving into the hubris of the character was comedic. I mean, it
Mm,
was so brazen, and the character Cal kind of carried the age, you know, the period of that film, and
yeah.
again the hubris and the shortcomings that fueled the tragedy. That the idea of being more concerned by the whereabouts of his fiance versus the sinking of the ship, which was irrelevant if not a nuisance, was the source of much laughter for us in many of the choices and
Okay.
you know collaborative inventions we came along the way. So it was a great pleasure to make. A difficult film, naturally, but it's
Mm.
sinking boat, cold water, and it is what it is. But jaw dropping in its scope and scale when you realize the thousands of workmen and women and tradesmen, civic engineers, people who'd never worked on films before worked on that movie in
Is that
order to
right?
execute this undertaking. So it was beyond a construction site. It was like part going to the building of the tallest building in the world and the jet propulsion laboratory.
Wow.
Gauging a moonshot lunar landing. It was this mixture of heavy industry and deep science and um, new technology that had not been necessarily proven or tested. It was being
Yeah.
crafted the other day. That was cool.
Yeah, because I mean that kind of James Cameron, like my grandfather, I mean he is a perfectionist when it comes to his movies as well.
No
Um,
question.
because
I would
yeah,
equate them for sure and put them in a similar category. No
yeah,
question.
and because it's funny because my grandfather, in order he would do whatever it took to get a take with Edna Purviance in the film The Immigrant. There's a scene where they're eating beans, and apparently he just made her do it over and over again until she got the scene right.
That's there's And it paid off because that's what, here's
Exactly.
the story about it, and the scene is perfect. So
And
she probably spent some time in the restroom.
exactly.
So
And
we suffer for our craft.
exactly. And so you've stated that your heroes are Sean Connery, Gene Kelly, Buster Keaton, and Charlie Chaplin. Um, there are a lot of great actors out there. What makes these people stand out to you most? Then why these guys?
Because in one way or another, they're. I mean, that list was based upon my passion and career choice and my kind of scope of reference. Right? They held the brass ring.
Mm.
And I would put it in reverse order, to be honest. I spoke through the lens of an actor and aspiration, but truly, your grandfather kind of leads the charge and is the bowsprit on so much when uh, when describing uh, cinema and as public service, and we'll get to that.
Hmm.
But they're all filmmakers, even the actors, like
Absolutely.
even Connery, who didn't direct, acts like a director, understands the language of film, and he was so intuitive, and you can see it in his work. He was such a movie star, for being someone who wasn't necessarily exposed to it early. It's something that was in the DNA, and he just got better with time.
Hmm.
Kelly, of course, masterful, heavily influenced by your grandfather, and made no, uh, qualms about it. He referenced him constantly and gave him great credit. Um, Wonderful director. His dream ballets, his choreography, his use of the camera um, was amazing. And just as a specimen, so it crosses between a, an individual who understands the language of the medium and um, a I mean storytellers all really, but the physical specimens, the unique examples of just this acute ability to um, communicate with what we're born with our physical form,
Mm.
with body and timing and silhouette, and you know is just that never ceases to amaze and will always uh, prevail, and is somehow perhaps a bit of a forgotten art in the age of the close up.
Hmm.
Um, you know, so what I really lean in when I see actors who know how to use their bodies, and it's weird you mentioned Back to the Future for some. I think it was last night. I was making some photo selections, and it was on TNT, and they ran 1, 2, and 3 together.
Oh
I've
wow.
never actually seen all of 3, and I still haven't,
Okay.
because by the time that one came on, I fell asleep. But I was, I hadn't seen these movies in a long time,
Yeah,
to
of
be
course.
honest. And they hold up, and they're wonderful, and they're really fun. And I just kind of would pop in and out. And Crispin Glover's performance in one as George McFly, as a physical actor, he was wonderful. His body, his choices, the specificity of his physicality was fantastic. But it's funny, mentioned Back to the Future. But that list of those lists of artists um, using the body basically as a piece of equipment, a filmmaking tool.
Yeah,
Those
yeah, I
really
see what you mean.
hold me on.
That's very nice. And so, do you remember the time when you first kind of saw a Chaplin film?
You know, I make it such a regular part of my diet, and now I've exposed
Okay.
my now 10 and 7-year-old daughters early on. I exposed them to Charlie, and they love him. Um, and the frequency, has eclipsed my memory of the first time. It's just a character and performance and
Hmm.
a canon that I've lived with for so long that I honestly don't remember the first time.
How funny.
And it's not really as significant as the last,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, to me. Every time you see it, it's completely fresh and poignant and meaningful, and you never tire. You as you bring your life's experience and the knowledge you learn over the ages, or whether it's history, or as you inform your viewing every time, you see more. You start to understand the relevance, and that's what I've really enjoyed in my recent years of more of a the kind of analysis and appreciation of uh, performance and as service. I mean, I attribute any success, including getting that job Back to the Future, to prior just months before I came, and then upon my arrival, the beginning of those 2 weeks, connecting with the concept of service, right?
Hmm.
Like, and gratitude, the humility that I feel is runs through, and what makes your grandfather's work so poignant and timeless. It's the connection to humanity. So I
Absolutely.
I drove to the Hollywood sign up in Beechwood where I was living, as close to it as I could get, then climbed illegally close to it. But I remember at this particular moment, I drove and stopped and was like, all right, what do you got? I offer these services for the highest expression, to like, who deserves form? Who the hell deserves form? Why should I get to be a movie star?
Hmm.
And who deserves it? And the answer was the worthy. Well, what's worthy? And all I can come back with was service. And if that means, because it's a bullhorn to billions of people, you know,
Yeah, that's true.
is a privilege like beyond compare. What do you do with that? What is the highest expression of that, or at least be aware of it, right? And and when you look at the there are very few examples of the 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 usage to its highest expression. And I feel Charlie Chaplin, Gene Kelly, the list,
Hmm.
delivered. Those two in particular
Okay.
constantly open the heart, right? If the idea is opening, empathy and humor and connectivity and moral compass, and always being, on the right side of history and thumbing your nose to tyranny, and be like
Exactly.
really getting a sense of like, okay, here's compass, and here's self-deprecation, and here's humility, and here's like, never beyond, self-correction, but a bit of a punk, right? Like,
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well, punk rock spirit that is still pretty cool. You, um, those things just float to the top always. And so that, coupled with service, which I think is a service, reminding people of the highest expression of the human condition, uniquely from the seeming or socially agreed lowest. And that's the magic. He picked the immigrant. He picked the who we need the tramp more than ever today.
yeah.
You know, where society forgets, and cyclically forgets, and racism bubbles up, and nationalism, and all of the things he railed against are back, and hardcore.
Mm.
And um, we I just feel like we need a real firm reminder of the things that united us all, um, and those were the subject of the pillars I think he touched, and so
Mm.
that's why his work is so significant to me.
Considering he had a certain stance on certain issues and everything, it's just funny that someone that doesn't speak has such a big impact on the world, and you still understand what he's saying.
the microphone was the beginning of a huge, unfortunate pause button. It wasn't an enabler.
Mm-hmm.
It locked our borders. It was the silent film. It was this universal language and universal themes that connected everyone and made your grandfather the biggest star in Russia, and Eisenstein and Potemkin. His films caused riots in Manhattan. These were universal themes, and liberation, liberty, freedom.
Yeah, for sure.
A fair shake, coming out from under tyranny, the bully, taking on the bully. Any culture,
Mm-hmm.
every culture. I just love that he chose a socioeconomic kind of prejudice to address. He chose I love when he plays, the fop and the privileged, even if mistaken as such. It's great to see him play that character as well, but it's from the point of view of, the street urchin, or, someone that society had deemed, untouchable, unlovable, inhuman.
Exactly, yeah.
He made the most heroic and romantic and powerful, the strongest, the smartest. And this harks back to what I was talking about. When you bring whatever knowledge you've had over the years to a new viewing, the latest kind of thing is, I was thinking about it before the interview. I said, okay, what's you've waxed on about Chaplin in interviews before. You've praised him. What's new? Come on, don't be tired. What do you got? And the thing that hit me today while brushing my teeth was it certainly wasn't the first time in history, just because it was cinematic, that kind of impact happened. It was the first time it was distributed at such a wide scale.
Exactly. Yeah. No, you're right.
And
So right.
And made it. I can't say it wasn't, like the court gesture, right? Whose job it was to parody and make fun of the king and not get executed, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
this was the job description, and had anyone else done it, they would have lost a head. But it kind of he was brought in to keep, I don't know how honest, but at least just not be beyond reproach and have a little bit of fun at the ruler's expense. This was the role, and this is the Harlequin. This became Harlequino in Commedia dell'arte and Bugs Bunny in Warner Brothers cartoons after the Pop, but our grandfather. So the role of the comedian and social satire and court politics, through the ages have been ever present. I think since the early comedians in ancient Greece, since Aristophanes, his plays, The Frogs and the Clouds, which are basically, vaudeville, ripe with like fart jokes and really raw and sexy and bawdy, and it's just absurd, but social comedy, right? Or social comment. And so that's been with us forever. But with the advent of cinema, first to the races who really took the charge and used those tools for their greatest end, not just a laugh to have a pie in the face, or to do a buster and fall on your ass, or have a crazy stunts, or like the first photograph taken, the hot girlfriend.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, do you mind taking that off? I think the first photograph was like this artist studio. It's like, I think we need a nude. Never changes through history.
No, it's true.
Was his use of the medium and the tools, and it just blew up from there.
Yeah, my father always told me that my grandfather was probably the first person to realize that you can mix comedy and tragedy together. But not only that, the importance of having the right music to the right scene, um, which is
And then
so
write
important.
it. I'm sorry, not everyone just then goes, "Oh yeah, let me compose that piece of music." That's the crazy thing. Is there anyone who's really gone there and gone, "Huh, you know what piece of music this really needs?" Excuse me, while I just compose "Smile" and holy cow!
No, he
Is
wasn't. He couldn't even. The funny thing is that he couldn't. He wasn't like trained in music as well. He
of
just
course
used.
he wasn't. You can tell. Of course, I mean, it's just it just came out like God. That was I don't. I bet there's people who don't even realize because they wouldn't dare venture. You know,
Hmm.
what was the? Can you bottle that confidence? You know, was it out of necessity? Was it for lack of? Because they were in some, you know,
Yeah.
sun-bleached desert stage, just trying to make what I mean. Who knows under what conditions? But you just have to wonder what was the. I just love the limitless um, confidence. You
Yeah.
know,
I know yeah,
that's
he definitely didn't lack confidence. He just went straight ahead, full on. He
hmm.
did absolutely everything. And God, do you? I mean, do you have a particular film that means something to yours? I mean, I know his speech in The Great Dictator blew up, especially with everything going on nowadays. But any scenes or anything stick out to mind?
Gold Rush is really fun
Yeah,
to me. I there the the there. I know it's really simple, but it's like the French farce. It's the simplicity of the doors and inside outside in the cabin outside the cabin. Just that and moving and then two doors. I love the economy of a couple of some of the long sequences in that and the concept of consideration of cannibalism because it's getting a little bit
that's so
when the
funny.
coin drops of like we're getting hungry and a big burly guy looks at looks at him like he's a little chicken leg
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
his reaction when he's realizing that
It is. It's genius. It's genius. I love that.
just
And
that I don't know that just speaks volumes.
What's the matter, said the little fellow. I thought you were a chicken. Ah, well, build up the fire, said Big Jim. What's the matter with you, said the little fellow. Come, my pretty bird, said Big Jim. Don't be childish.
yeah, because I don't know if you knew, but the house which he was in Switzerland, our family home, is now a museum.
I was given a private tour
Ah,
by your managing director or your head. I have his card somewhere. I'm
okay.
going to send you. I'm going to send you some photos of me interacting with the very life-size statues
Yes.
of him, which are very funny. I was in the barber chair where he was shaving, doing the shaving, but I'm interacting. Like, can you just do a little off the side?
That's
And
amazing.
my favorite is when he's waving like this, when he's
Yes.
standing, and he's back, and he's doing this,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
Well, I stood in front of this hand and pretended like he goosed me, which was hey. He's waving, and I'm like,
That's
hey,
so
what's
funny.
with the handsy?
Oh, that's great
These
that you
things,
went,
yes.
because I was going to say they also have the cabin, don't they, from the Gold Rush? They
They
recreated
do.
it. Yeah, which
Yes.
is
It's an
funny.
incredible museum. It's so well curated, and built and executed. I recommend anyone's trip to Geneva or Montreux.
Yeah.
Up by.
Apparently, you worked with Claire Bloom on Broadway.
Yes.
And I mean, for people who don't know, she was in Limelight, my grandfather's film, the leading lady. Did she tell you any stories about working with my granddad or Buster Keaton?
She said what a unique privilege that was as a young lady. She just thought she was, she had a very charmed experience in that, the same. It was just to be working with, the masters so young was just a great privilege as an artist. We had a really wonderful time doing a play called 6 Dance Lessons in 6 Weeks on the London stage at the Royal Haymarket, and it was a two-hander, and it was a very charming comedy and sensitive comedy, and beautiful story, and really, really lovely play.
By the way, how is it working on the stage for Broadway? How does it differ from acting in movies?
It's a good question, because it's a very strange. I've described it as a strange cocktail of abject terror and boredom.
Okay.
Which is a very strange combination of emotions. Like, mostly it's like I mustn't be too far from the theater at 3 o'clock, because God knows if I'm just the concept of being late, the idea that you have to be, obviously you have call times in the morning and there's margin of error, but a live performance, you get those butterflies kind of just making sure you're there.
Yes.
That was just always something weird. And the beauty that hopefully you learn the material soon enough to actually enjoy or welcome beautiful accidents, or for, having fun. But for the most part, by the time you go through previews and you're being reviewed, the material the least of all.
Yeah.
You should be reviewed, and you're you're just kind of you're finding its legs. I love the spontaneity. I love improvisation. I love rolling with the mood of a crowd, like a DJ in a way, but and working with others in this conspiracy. Mm-hmm. And the whole backstage life is something I adore, which is usually filled with comedy, sabotage, and high school antics. I mean, it's just child's play. All you do is you're messing with people and each other and yourself, and you're being constantly messed with 2 seconds before you go on stage. But like right here, it's the back row of a English class in high school. It's just literally the goofiest experience. In some cases, however, in others, it certainly can be quite serious. And then the long haul and the repetition is a very curious experience. Mm. I think I'm a creature of cinema, but I do enjoy the stage very much. Every 5 years or so, I'll get on the boards.
What do you do? You did 2 shows a day, then? Was it?
Not every day.
Okay.
2 to 3 times a week, you would do 2 shows, 2 days.
No, it's a pretty
8 to 10 shows. It's a grind, and you're like, okay, did that. But I think the last time on any kind of scale was playing, rest his soul, Christopher Plummer's role in The Sound of Music at the Lyric Opera in Chicago.
Oh wow, that must be great.
It was wonderful. 3,500 seat theater, which we filled maybe 3 times. Massive barn, probably the biggest theater, insanely huge theater, and a perfect play. It's you bask in the love of 7 children, fight the Nazis, and fall in love.
Yes, so. Exactly. Amazing. And so, is there any movies or roles that you regret turning down over your career?
I don't know. I don't put much stock in regret.
Yeah.
changing the past to the point of Back to the Future, if I may go back again, may just create a paradox, and break the time-space continuum, destroy the universe as we know it. Spencer, how could you? So, no, nothing.
Good.
Although,
I like that.
I know I was very, I didn't want to keep playing, psycho killers. Like Hollywood's funny. You play a crazy guy in a boat, you're the crazy guy in a boat.
Yeah, I see what
You're
you
the
mean.
crazy guy in the house. So you're I enjoy, after a while,
Yeah.
you have to change it up. So I've, focused on other things and exploring. Like I love, I kind of treat every role a bit like I approach it like a comedy, because it's really I think the absurdity of even the greatest tragedy, is there's such a pulse about, um, be it gallows humor or just
Mm.
or irony or um, I think it was just a way to approach, complex and complicated characters or harrowing circumstances, was to lean into it and know that it's also a great way to relieve pressure in a thriller or something a little more tense.
Yeah, of course.
So it was my saving grace.
No, yeah, you have a good sense of humor.
Thank you.
And so, do you have any projects coming up? With everything going on, are you still being able to work?
Yeah, it's ramped up. Well, at the beginning of COVID, we were just, scouting and putting together a project I'm producing and, acting in, which I'm very excited by, called Waltzing with Brando, which is about, Marlon and his architect, Bernard Judge,
Okay.
and who he employed to, uh, initially build, a vision he had, which was then carried on, by, um, a gentleman named Richard Bailey, and to this present day, this island, the island he had in Tahiti, um, called Techeroa, which he bought right after doing, um, Mutiny on the Bounty. He had a vision for always wanting to make a sustainable, kind of closed loop, zero carbon footprint compound. He was fascinated by technology and science, and wanted to create a place where great minds can try to solve big problems. I didn't know much about this. I didn't know this about Brando. I
Okay.
didn't know, and, I knew him as an activist for civil rights and indigenous rights. Did not know about his passion for environmentalism. Certainly not in 1968, in 1970, when no one was talking about this stuff for the most part.
Okay, amazing.
So it's a story about him as a visionary, but it's a comedy for the most part. It's a relationship. It's a ironic and surprising look at an artist we think we know, between Godfather and maybe Apocalypse Now,
Okay.
building this incredible destination.
I read as well that you're very much into environmentalism, so it's quite funny. So that obviously drew you to this movie about Brando as well. I'm surprised to hear that he
Yes,
was as well very early on into that sort of
and
eco-friendly stuff.
science.
Yeah, interesting.
His passion for, um, just gleaning knowledge from NASA scientists on how to make a sustainable and closed loop compound, and try to preserve the oceans in the
That's
process,
so
and how
cool.
to create air conditioning using deep water cooling called SWAC, which they actually built, saltwater air conditioning. A very amazing thing. So yes, Brando as a science enthusiast was a very interesting story. So we're making that. we shot some of it at the beginning of COVID, and now we're going to do the rest in Tahiti.
Okay, wow.
Going back. So, but presently I'm working on a limited series with Kevin Hart
Cool.
right now, and will probably look like I'll reprise my role in. I wonder what I'm allowed to speak about. I think I'm in The Boys.
Oh, cool.
So just a cameo where I played, so I'm doing a little Netflix, a little Amazon. These things are still happening, which is cool, but really focusing on the Brando of it all.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Billy Zane, I can't thank you enough for coming on
Spencer,
the show.
my great pleasure. Thank you, my friend.
It's a real honor to talk to you. Huh?
The pleasure's mine. Anytime. Let's do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love the subject. I'm such a fan. And thank you for keeping, the beauty and impact of your grandfather's work accessible in, these delivery systems and these modern tools. I think it's very smart and noble.
No, thank you. I mean, thank you for taking part in it for sure. Huh? I love hearing stories as well. You're the first actor to appear on the show.
Really?
Yes, which is really cool. So thank you again. Huh?
My great pleasure, and thank you, my friend.
Cheers.